Corner. My name's Jeff. I'm one of your two hosts, and the other of the two hosts is Paul, who's over there.
Hi. Yes,
he's looking around
me.
Gormlessly. If you're listening, imagine Paul looking gormless, and if you're watching on
it's quite
YouTube,
easy. It's kind of the default, really.
Yeah, it's
not
look up any
middle
picture
of the
of
week.
him. Yeah. So
default for
we're
a Tuesday.
doing a little bonus episode today where we're going to talk about a couple of new Doctor Who books that we very kindly received from Ebury Publishing. So
BBC Books.
Caged and Ruby Red. I've only got my copy of Caged with me, actually. My Ruby Red is at home.
Shocking.
So we very kindly received these end of last week, didn't we?
We did, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for this. So we selected one each to try and read over the weekend, and you're quite a quick reader, aren't you?
I read both,
so
yes.
You read both. So I've managed to do one of them, and I managed to do that whilst one of my kids was ill, and I was sleeping on the floor to make... Well, I wasn't sleeping, I was reading.
That's so sad. Is she all right now?
Yes,
is it one of your girls?
Fine. Yes. So yeah, I was on the floor in the twins' room to keep an eye on sick child, and I thought, well, it's 10 o'clock. I don't normally go to bed at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to read, and I managed to get through most of Caged before I then watched Legend of Ruby Sunday when it went out. So yeah, so I tackled Caged, which is this one, which was written by Una McCormack, who's written a number of Doctor Who novels before. This is her fifth, I believe, and I'm just going to bring up her list. Yeah, so she wrote The King's Dragon and Way Through the Woods, which had 11, Amy and Rory in. She wrote Royal Blood, featuring 12th Doctor and Clara, and Molten Heart, which was 13, Yaz, Ryan and Graham. And this is her first with 15th Doctor. And you read Ruby Red. Well, you read both, but Ruby Red was your main one.
I started with Ruby Red, which is Georgia Cook's first novel, I believe. Georgia Cook, again, has written a whole ton of various Doctor Who, says so. In the flyleaf at the back.
She's done Big Finish, hasn't she, and DWM.
Yeah, is an illustrator and writer. She's written several sets in the Big Finish Doctor Who audio range, including the 11th Doctor Chronicles, Gallifrey, War Room, and the Interludes. She's also contributed short stories to publications such as Baffling Magazine and Flame Tree Press, and is a frequent contributor to various horror anthology podcasts as a writer and voice-over artist. Maybe I should do a bit of that. I should do a bit of voiceover artist.
Yeah, you could do, yeah.
Do a bit of that. If you need a scary voice, give me a call. Evil laughs thrown for free. See?
So, so she's quite new to the world of Who fiction, isn't she?
Oh, Georgia, is she?
Yeah, well, in terms of writing the books.
A whole ton of Big Finish. I've just said it to you there.
No, I mean for the books though. You know, this is her first book. Yeah,
it's her debut novel. I believe.
Yeah. So, in a moment, tell us what the plot for Ruby Red is. But Caged, this is quite a high concept one, I thought. So it just has a little bit of blurb on the back. Are aliens ever abducted by aliens? And if they were, would anyone believe their story? Now, I thought that was pretty clever, really, because we always it's always of humans getting abducted, but Una's taken that and thought, well, what if aliens get abducted, and who's abducting them?
So and that who are the aliens? It's all a matter of perspective,
exactly, yeah.
Which features quite a lot in this book, doesn't it?
Yes. So to expand upon that synopsis there, so when the Doctor and Ruby arrive on Cavia, they meet a gentle local who is certain that she has been taken for study by creatures from the stars. The Doctor is concerned to find mysterious meteors appearing in the sky, while strange robotic creatures crowd the forests, watching everything and waiting for what? Who is interested in Cavia and why? And what is the sinister truth of the abductions? The Doctor and Ruby must discover the secrets of this mysterious world and those who would seek to destroy it. So, I really enjoyed this one, and I liked that kind of concept of the aliens being taken, and this story features an alien race, doesn't it? And they're sort of like guinea pigs, aren't they?
Giant guinea pigs.
Giant guinea pigs. Kind of.
Which
literally.
Ruby's kind of. When Ruby first meets them, she's kind of resisting the urge to give a big stroke and a hug, isn't she? It's quite funny.
Yeah, there's quite a few bits where she, it's like Ruby just wanted to nestle her face in the fur and stuff. And so the guinea pig thing is quite an RTD thing, isn't it? To have a kind of,
you keep saying this,
recognisable, animal.
But I don't think it's exclusively RTD. I know
no, probably not.
But it's not necessarily one of his tropes, I don't think.
Okay, yeah, interesting. But
take issue with you on that one.
The guinea pigs become. There is a bit of a payoff to that, isn't there?
There's a really good payoff. Yeah.
When you find out a bit more about it all, and I really liked the character. I'm going to look it up in the book. Chirichar, yeah. So they've all got quite unusual names, which is nice. And I think Una did quite a nice job of creating this race and this community they've got, and Chirichar is really it becomes quite a nice kind of doctor companion relationship, doesn't it? She's always, her character, she looks up at the sky and she wants to know what's out there, whereas the rest of her people they sort of, they're not interested, are they?
They don't. She's the inquisitive one, isn't she?
Yeah, she is, and she's very kind, very gentle, and the Doctor really likes her, as does Ruby, and Chirichar has been taken at some point, by an alien, but nobody believes her, and they think she's just talking nonsense, and she's a bit weird, a bit mad. So as it progresses, and you discover more, she's proven right, isn't she? And you discover what's been going on. So I don't want to give it all away, because I know a few people were interested to hear what we thought of the book, so I don't want to kind of
can't give away all the secrets and surprises. No. But there are plenty of them in here, aren't there?
Yes, there are. Yeah.
I think a lot of it, but what I really enjoyed about this book is what I alluded to earlier, which is that kind of play on perspective. So, the whole who is the alien thing, because obviously within this society, that's kind of described in the book. Obviously the Doctor and Ruby are the aliens.
Yeah.
And what I really, really like more than all of that is how none of the aliens none of the other races rather, the non-human races that feature in this book are described until Ruby and the Doctor see them. So, and even then, they're not described in the prose. They're kind of described in reactions, like your long spindly arms, and like I said to earlier about Ruby just wanting to hug the fur. So it's quite interesting how your initial kind of impressions of these races are formed. For me, anyway, primarily, I thought of Chirichir as being human form. I thought, well, this kind of starts a little bit like a Star Trek episode, particularly something like Who Watches the Watchers, where you have an observant race of people, Starfleet Federation, basically watching a group of an alien community evolve on go about their daily business on a planet. And there's a little bit of that. So I kind of imagined in my head that Chirichir and her people were kind of human-like. But then there's reference to things like nests and stuff. They all live in communes, as you said. And, there's no real sort of technology. There's some basic technology, but you realise it's not actually tools as such, because they don't have opposable digits. And there's a few things that kind of just drip-fed throughout, which I really, really enjoyed. And then the abducting aliens, so the second alien, quotation fingers, race in here, they look and feel. So Chirichir describes them as having long, spindly arms. And she's looking up into dark eyes when she's on the operating table in that initial early kind of sequence. And then later on, when she meets the Doctor and Ruby, she describes the Doctor and Ruby as having long, spindly arms, like the race that took us. I thought, okay, so this is interesting. So the abducting aliens are the ones that are possibly more human-like. But then, of course, it turns out they're not, right? They're very different. And that's brilliant, because I love that kind of guessing game. And I love the skill with which all of that was kind of, as I said, drip-fed through the novel. So you're kind of adding layers and layers and layers of imagery and situation and context as you go through. It's not all given to you in a big, massive info dump at the start. You learn it as you read. And for me, I love stories that do that. So, it's a good one. I did enjoy this.
yeah, you said about the the sort of multiple alien races in it, and it was really quite fun the way Ruby is obviously alien to these others as well, and then how they react to her. You don't often sort of see that perspective. Obviously the Doctor and companion meet other aliens, but you never really sort of get much of their...
You don't usually see it from their point of view, do
you?
You
and there's a lot of kind of like, oh wow, kind of awe at Ruby and stuff,
the fact she's from outside their world, it's been... I think there's a point in the novel where it's kind of said that there's no such thing as aliens. We've looked out there, we haven't seen any evidence, kind of like we have on Earth at the moment.
They explore
we've got
the galaxy,
decent technology, and we can look beyond, and we haven't found anything to indicate that we're actually not alone. It's just the numbers and the vastness make it difficult for us to think that in all the universe, why should we be alone? But actually, what if we were? Wow, you know what I mean? That's kind of scary in some respects. But yeah, so it's nice. There is that constant shift, and the abducting aliens do have a very, very advanced technology, and even with that, they can't look beyond. And I think what's also interesting there as well is that there's a bit of there's a lot that we can see with them, with our own people as well. The fact that you've got some... you've got people who, like scientists, for example, who maybe want to push out the boundaries, maybe explore a little bit more, a bit like Chiricha in her society. And there are those who want to stop it, who see it as a waste of resources, throwing good money after bad. And what's the point anyway? We've got enough problems right here without looking beyond further. And there's a sequence a bit later on, I'm not going to give too much away, but, where there's a demonstration outside the kind of sciencey area sort of thing going on. And and that's another thing I like about this, because all too often we get a lot of books and TV programs about space aliens where they're all the same, pretty much. They all kind of look the same, they all do the same, and they're just like one single community. Whereas when you look at the human race, we're all very different. Every nation has its own cultural identity and, ways of voting and everything else, and, just its own kind of mannerisms and traditions and heritage and cultures. And where those kind of cultures either conflict or mix or merge, or, that's where a lot of the interesting stories are. And yet, in so many sci-fi novels, particularly the kind of mass market stuff, the aliens are all the same. So you'll have, like, I don't know, a race of warrior women, for example, or you'll have a bunch of people who are an agrarian, non-threatening, non-weapon building community, or something like that. Whereas I got the impression here that at least one of the worlds was made up of very different types of cultures and people and identities and stuff, even though they were all essentially the same race. So I enjoyed that. I thought it was a really really intelligent story. It wasn't written in a very complex way. I think it was, you said it's quite high concept. I think it is to a degree. It's a really nice hook, but it's told in a really accessible, straightforward way, which is great. It's one thing I like about both these novels, is the fact they're written, they don't talk down to younger readers. They just tell the story, with as little complexity as possible, in a way. They're very economic with the words, and I like that. Just get to the point, tell a story, and then get out. That's kind of what I like.
And I know you don't read a lot of these new series adventures, but they're all very much like that, and that is not a bad thing, for me. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I was going to say the caged title is. The book starts with a moment, and you think, "Oh, okay, that's obvious. I see now why it's called that." And you think, "Well, how's that happen, or what's going to happen, and blah blah blah." But actually, it's as it goes on, that title becomes more apparent, I think, doesn't it?
And I think it works on a couple of layers at least as well. So it's quite nice. But I must admit, from the from the cover, I mean, there's a cover of, for those of you listening on audio, there's the 15th Doctor and Ruby looking very dynamic with some massive armoured, red-eyed, clawed beast behind them. It does. I think sometimes. I mean, the artwork is great. The artwork is by.
It's really nice. Photoshop. Is it Lee Binding?
It is Lee Binding. Yes, it is. It is Lee Binding. Thank you. Who we interviewed on here a little while ago.
We did.
I wonder if he was working on them on these, and then couldn't tell us about them, because there was a few things he was keeping to his chest, wasn't there? But nonetheless, I mean, it's beautiful artwork. But I'm not sure it really tells the story of what's inside it. I think it's meant to kind of grab attention more than anything, which is fine, there's a thing for that. But it's funny, it's interesting how, the cover of a book does in some way kind of shape your preconceptions or give you expectations as to what you're going to have, because I don't think it necessarily reflects on what we read. I think it does, actually, but it's a specific moment towards the end, perhaps, rather than the feel of the whole. That's what I think it is,
because there's the rollers, as they call them, that are these sort of armadillo type creatures in it, and then the guinea pig race. And as I was reading the book, I would occasionally look at the cover and think, that doesn't look anything like what is described, and is much bigger than the other thing that's being described. But then, like you said, there's a bit towards the end when you realise, oh, okay, so that's what it's been made to look like. Yeah. So it's the book cover is showing you what is being fed to people. I think, So it's slightly, but misleading in a deliberate way, I think, and it certainly grabs your attention. It's a cool looking creature.
It's got to shout out amongst a whole bunch of other sort of young adult fictions, hasn't it? So it's they've got to do these things. But it's a beautiful cover, and it's a good book. I really enjoyed that one. So so thank you for sending that one over.
Yes, thank you. And I hope that I know there's another book coming out, Eden Rebellion, and it's not out yet, which I wonder why. Maybe it's got something kind of obviously tied to the series. Maybe it takes place after. So there must be a reason, because normally these trios of books all come out at the same time. So
or maybe it just hasn't been finished yet.
Well, possibly, but it's due out in like 2 weeks, so I would have thought it would be done by now. So maybe we might get a copy of that to have a look at as well. But it's great to have the sort of trio of novels back. We got a set of series with 12th Doctor, but we only got one set with 13, which was always a shame. And I think that was partly because they felt that certainly series 12, everything was so kind of tightly wound together with the Timeless Child plot and stuff like that. They didn't want additional
I don't know.
things coming out. But
you can write any story for any Doctor at any period in their cycle without affecting the main story.
I think
that was the same with 13 as much as anyone. I think the only place where it might have upset stuff was maybe during the flux, but there's a lot of time before and after where you can set a whole bunch of stories.
Yeah, they could surely have done it. So
if they wanted to, they could have done it. And like you said, it's a shame they didn't really. Because I do kind of feel like we robbed. I mean, we had that brilliant Juno Dawson novel, which I loved. Was it
The Good Doctor? Yeah. And
Juno Dawson, I think it was.
It was,
and it's fabulous.
Una McCormack wrote Molten Heart, which was one of the other ones that came out.
I remember you talking to Steve Cole about it when we interviewed him.
Yeah, so that was really good as well. Yeah.
Maybe it was economic factors. We didn't get them all.
Could be.
Maybe there was more to it. Who knows? We shall never know. But good to have these. And also, just on that final point as well. Actually, these are big hardbacks.
Yes,
these are proper
I do
sized.
like that. Yeah,
they're not the pocketbook-sized hardbacks, which are kind of ridiculous, really. These are proper full-sized, big, giant hardbacks, so they will sit nicely on my shelf alongside all my other very well cared for books.
Yes, if you're not very watching on YouTube, you can't see Paul's shelf behind him. So go and
some of these Target novels, even these Virgin Target novels, I mean, they're like 30 years old nearly.
Are they really?
It's crazy. It makes me feel really old.
Yes, it's just the books that make you feel old.
Oh dear. Shocking.
So tell me a little bit about Ruby Red.
Ruby Red, the other one, this one here. This is very different actually. So did you read this? Did you start?
No, I haven't started yet. No.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, they don't take long to read, mate. Not going to lie. So this is Ruby Red by.
You're saying I'm a slow reader?
Georgia Cook. I'm just saying you obviously struggle. You know, everyone reads at different paces. It's fine. So this is very different. This is this one is set on Earth, specifically in the year 1242, and somewhere kind of between sort of on the border of Estonia, Russia. You know, medieval sort of Russia kind of thing, which I don't know an awful lot about. I'm not going to lie. One thing I like about reading historical Doctor Who fiction is that it usually prompts me to go back and to go in and learn a little bit more about the time period, which I really do want to do and will do at some point, but I haven't done it yet. So I don't know an awful lot about it. So as to its kind of historical accuracy, I don't know, but I'm sure it's kind of based on something that may or may not have happened. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't affect, you know, your sort of understanding or anything. It's basically about people, and you know, I think a lot of the best stories are. So what we have here, I'll just read from the synopsis. Actually, is there a little blurb on the back? Yeah, there is. There's a tiny little
a couple of lines,
blurb on the back there, which says, "What a coming-of-age ritual. Throw a 16-year-old warrior at some random galactic battle, then give them a high five and their own sword if they survive." Which doesn't really tell you an awful lot, actually, so I'll read the actual synopsis from the inside cover, which says, April 1242. I won't do that, it hurts. The Doctor and Ruby answer a distress call sent from medieval Russia. The signal sender, Ranavir, an alien girl forced to take part in a barbaric conflict between the armies of Estonia and Novgorod on the frozen surface of Lake Peipus. Ranavir wants to escape, but her distress call has summoned her war-mongering sisters, intent on preserving family tradition, whatever the cost. And as human battle begins, the Doctor and Ruby must face a more devastating threat, a monstrous entity with plans of conquest growing stronger beneath the icy lake. Wow, that sounds awesome, doesn't it? Sadly, that's not actually the story that happens. That's like the kind of context in which the actual story happens. Right. And I'm not going to lie, you know, I did kind of struggle to find my way through this book. I felt there was a lot of to-ing and fro and a lot of backwards and forwards, you know, kind of. So essentially the Doctor and Ruby kind of land on the frozen lake itself, whilst Ranavir, who's the kind of, you know, the hero of the story, and she's great. I love her. I think she's fantastic. You know, she's a really kind of flighty sort of teenage kid with, you know, who comes from this warmongering race who Ruby thinks look a little bit like Valkyries, you know, but lots of sort of warrior queens in battle armor and big orange swords and stuff, and obviously quite technologically advanced as well. So there's kind of elements of, you know, Asgard and what have you. And I was kind of put in mind of, you know, Asgard from the MCU as much as anything else. It seemed to be that kind of portrayal of these things. So whether they are actual Valkyries or not doesn't really matter. It's not really referenced, other than, like I said, to Ruby, they look like them. So the Doctor and Ruby land. They kind of rescue Ranavir, who's running away from her sisters, it turns out, and I do like the sisters. I'll come back to that, but then there's a little bit of a confrontation, and then they end up joining the camp of Novgorodian soldiers who are led by Prince, and it's a really nicely described camp with, you know, all sorts of camp things going on. But we don't really, I think we get to meet one of the people from the camp, one of the soldiers, Offram, I think his name is, and he's just kind of standard teenage boy, really, you know. Something happens to him later on, and it's like, okay, well, that's interesting. You know, so, but I must admit, you know, there's a lot to love about this book. You know, the characterization is great. I think Ranavir is great. I think her sisters are also fantastic. You know, we've got a nice dynamic between the sisters. You know, one of them is very kind of traditional in her outset, and is really quite fierce, and she's a difficult nut to crack, basically. You know, she's much more the kind of gung-ho. The other one is a little bit perhaps more empathic towards it. And what I liked is that, okay, so there's a little bit of digging into the society that they all come from. And it's a very matriarchal society. It's driven by battle and war and honor and all those wonderful things. And of course, part of the kind of ritual that everybody has to kind of go through to prove themselves is as described in the synopsis. But like I said, this is part of the ritual. So Ranavir's on Earth and she has to take part in a battle, but she's not a warrior. There is no way. I mean, this is one of the things I really love about this is, she can't. It's not that she can't fight. She actually can't fight. She doesn't want to. It's not in her nature to be that. And you can sort of get a sense of all the turmoil that's going on in your head, in her head, of being steered towards this kind of destiny, if you like, or this kind of place within society, or at least within her family. And it's like, I don't want to do that. It's not me. It really isn't. But she's great at technical stuff. She's built these distress beacons, 3 spheres, which is one of which enticed, sort of told the Doctor she was down there. Right. And also her sisters where she was, and also some other beast of Beyond the Stars as well. So it's all kind of come in. So what I like, and so I do like that. The fact she doesn't want to fight. She's got other skills, and one of the sisters can see that she's got these skills and thinks, well, okay, there's a place for you here. We just have to convince everybody else that this is what you want to do, and that there's a benefit to what you can do for the whole clan, the whole family. So she kind of promises to speak on her behalf. The other sister, as I said, is a tougher nut to crack. Takes a little bit more convincing. So I thought there was a nice promise of conflict there, and there is a little bit, but I kind of felt that it sort of petered out a little bit towards the end. It didn't really climax too much, and the kind of battle that's kind of threatened and sort of builds, there's a countdown towards the day of the battle. At one point it looks like the battle is going to come a day early, which has implications for the whole timeline thing, and the Doctor and Ruby have to sort of do something to make sure it doesn't happen a day early, but that was all a little bit kind of unclear. I felt it didn't really sort of come across, and in the end it actually didn't seem to matter anyway, So it's like a lot of things which is kind of placed, and then they sort of, promise great things, but perhaps, at least in my mind anyway, don't quite deliver on that promise. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe someone else reads this and, thinks it, thinks very differently, which I'm sure they will. So
maybe.
All I can do really is just kind of put my impressions of it together. I thought the story was quite strong, but felt it could be stronger. Perhaps I thought they could have actually been a fair bit more conflict, a fair more conflict between what each of the what the sisters wanted representing the family, what Ranavir really wanted. They didn't really seem to come to a head, and whilst there was a resolution, it was like, well, it was probably going that way anyway. There was no big sort of story mountain to overcome. If you think the shape of the structure, you're going along, hit an obstacle, you have to fight to overcome it, and then you get the downslope. There's none of that. It was relatively kind of flat, and I was a little bit disappointed. I'm so sorry, George, but I've read so many books and seen so many movies and TV shows which have red-eyed zombies. I'm just bored of them, man. I just absolutely, and as soon as the red-eyed zombies appeared in this, I'm like, oh no, and it was like, we're not even doing anything different with the red-eyed zombies. They are literally just red-eyed zombies, and all it seemed to do is just increase the page count for the sake of it. And I'm like, oh no, and I felt awful because I'm sorry. I guess at the end of it, I didn't really enjoy this book. I certainly didn't enjoy it as much as the other one. I kind of persevered through it, and I do like Ranavir's conclusion. I like her character. I like what she stood for, and I think certainly Freya, you met my daughter. She is indeed, and she will stand up and fight for women in STEM. And I know she's got the backing of her school to do it, because the school and the government, we want more women in technology and engineering and stuff, right? So, Ranavir is very much of that mould. So I could kind of see her being a bit like Freya. Freya's got a bit of warrior queen in her, but she's not a fighter. She'd rather, find a diplomatic solution, and she'd rather engineer something. She's sort of tweaky like that, So, she'd rather put a science head on than get her flaming sword. So it's that really. So I think there's a lot of promise in this, and maybe I read it too quickly to maybe sort of pick up on some of the finer points of it. But it wasn't my favourite Doctor Who novel. It's not a bad novel at all. I think it's a very good novel, but it just wasn't quite for me, I think. And I thought the promise that's set up. I read the synopsis and I thought, well, this is great. This sounds a bit kind of almost the sort of Hunger Games kind of tone to the thing, where we're going to get a lot of barbaric fighting and, a lot of conflict, and, it wasn't really that. That's the starting point for the story. It's not the actual story that follows. I thought, the story that follows actually is kind of a little bit more prosaic.
Okay, well, I'll
that's a bit downbeat, isn't it?
But no, I mean, we have to be honest with things. I'm going to try and get onto it a bit later in this week. So when I've read it, I'll let you know what I thought. And anyone who's watching, if you're picking up these books, let us know what you think of them as well. Which is your favourite. And like I said, there's another book, Eden Rebellion, out in a couple of weeks from the time we're recording now. So keep your eyes open for that as well. So it's been good fun. I always like these new books, so I've enjoyed reading this Caged one. And
it's always brilliant to have new Doctor Who books to put on my shelf. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Target novels in there that I haven't enjoyed, even half as much as this. So, and I still read them, and I'll still buy them, and I'll still want them on my collection. So, and the fact that they've been written, and the fact that they've been written by new voices as well as experienced voices, I think it's great. And the more people who read them, the better, really. And we're all going to have different responses. There's all, me, I do enjoy more the kind of high concept sci-fi stuff than historical stuff, But saying that, I think the one historical that actually, it wasn't a novel, it was a big finish, is The Marian Conspiracy by Jacqueline Rayner, which I thought was just, honestly, probably the best historical Doctor Who I've read, next to The Crusades by David Whittaker. Just brilliant on every single level. But I think a lot of the others kind of fall way, 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 way short. They just need a bit of a lift somehow. And I'd say go read The Marian Conspiracy, or listen to it, or read or The Crusades, The Crusaders by David Whittaker. Crusades is the TV version. The Crusaders is a novelised little kind of thing. They see what he did there. It's amazing, just to differentiate. But really good to have them on my shelf. I'm going to stop talking now. Sorry. So,
thank you very much to BBC Books for sending them over to us.
Thank you,
and we're
BBC
very
Books.
Grateful. And do let us know if you've read them, or if you're going to be getting them. We'd love to know what you think of them. So we'll be back again soon for more podcast action and maybe some more books in the future. Who knows? But we'll see you very soon.
See you soon. Ta-ta for now.
All right.